Mambo Team Africa Worldwide. Habari ya Asubui, Habari ya Mchana, Habari ya Jioni. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. The title of today's video is Never Ever Give Up. This video is to myself more than anything, but I'm hoping that a lot of people in the family, on the Team Africa, can get benefit from this. Um, when I say never give up, what am I talking about? Life, yeah. Your goals and your dreams, yeah. Um, uh, your identity, yeah, but in specific, I'm talking to myself about learning Kiswahili. Um, I first got serious about learning Kiswahili in 2017, and since then, there probably hasn't been a day that I haven't studied in some way, shape, or form, whether it's listening to Kiswahili news um, from YouTube, whether it's talking to a person or texting someone in East Africa, whether it's you know attempting to read a book written in Kiswahili. I've done something practically every day. I might have missed a day here and there, but for the most part, it's been consistent. It's a daily thing for me. And over this time, I tend to become a little bit discouraged because I feel like my understanding should be better. I know, you know, at least 1,000 Kiswahili words, maybe more. But when I hear these words strung together in conversation, I the way Swahili works, a lot of times the one word blends into the other word, and the language moves very fast. And so, a lot of times, I'm listening to uh, Kiswahili, and I don't understand what's being said, and I'm saying to myself, I have to know more of these words because I know how many words I know. Why am I not understanding? But all I will say to myself and to others is don't be discouraged. I know Kiswahili is not considered to be one of the most difficult languages to learn because they're using the so called Roman script, which is really the Kemetic script. But I digress. A lot of times people say languages such as Arabic and Mandarin and are harder because they have a different script. But if you're trying to learn a language and you're over 40, it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be difficult, um, but never give up. Um, when you're younger, you have a memory that's like a safe, you know. But as you get older, even if you're eating right and you're exercising, you've accumulated more thoughts over time. And so it's sort of like a hard drive of a computer. It can get filled up and the computer starts running slower. And I was just talking to one of the brothers yesterday, and we were talking about, when you have financial problems or medical problems or family problems or whatever, you're thinking about that stuff even when you think you're not thinking about them. It's taking up space. It's just like on your cell phone or whatever. Occasionally, you might get a message that says you have apps that aren't being used. Would you like to put those apps in sleep mode because they're running in the background and they're slowing your phone down? So, I mean, one thing we can do about that is, try to remove stress and anxiety out of our lives is to pray. And if you don't pray, you can chant. And one way I chant is I use the word uh, AMN, which can be pronounced Amen, um, Amin, or Amun, or even Aman, because the Kemetic people they didn't use vowels. But I noticed that there's a vibration when you chant this word. There's a vibration that really calms the spirit. Um, that's one thing to do, because a lot of people, they just try to meditate and think of nothing or whatever, and they find it difficult. You start hearing all the sounds that are around you. The sounds or might be a block away. You start hearing the sounds when you try to not think of anything and you become distracted. But if you focus on a word, that tends to work. That helps clear the mind. But learning Kiswahili is super important. If Kiswahili isn't your African language of choice, then pick another one. I'm not faulting that. But these devils, they stole a lot from us. They stole a lot from us, and a lot of us, we don't know any better. We think that English is our language. Those of us who might be born in France, we think French is our language. Those of us who may be born in Brazil, we think Portuguese is our language. Those of us who may have been born in Colombia, we think Spanish is our language. All of these are colonizer languages, oppressor languages, whatever you want to call them. They're not. If you are an African, these are not your languages. And so if you're claiming your African identity, always talk about number one, change your name. You can start with the last name, because that's the one the world recognizes as being the most important. And this is a way where people would not be accused of disrespecting their parents as much, because your parents, they gave you your first name and your middle name, but that last name came from somewhere else. And you even have many, many, many Africans on the continent, depending on where you are, who also have European names, first names, due to colonialization, but they retain their family names or their surnames. So that's the number one thing you need to do when you actually reject that plantation name, embrace an African name, and legalize that African name, and make the devils call you by that. It just shifts. It shifts your energy. It shifts everything. It's to the point now where even if I tell people that I'm American, they don't believe me. Um, it's funny. But it's funny, just because I changed my name. If I don't tell people that I changed my name, I just say I'm American. I'm born here. They accuse me of being an anchor baby and all types of stuff. It's hilarious. So it just goes to show. And then even people on the continent that I meet, because of my name, they think that I'm in denial. They think that my parents and my grandparents moved here, and then now I'm rejecting my African roots. So I mean, it's very, very powerful when you change your name. And what's even more powerful is learning the African language. Trust me, people, they do not want you to have your identity. Once Africans realize who we are and start becoming Afrocentric, we have African names, and we pray to African gods, and we eat African food, and we wear African dress. People think it's not going to liberate you, and it's not liberating. It is. It is. It's just that, it's kind of hard when you got these scattered individuals who are pursuing this effort. But as more and more of us start to do it, that momentum would pick up. And sometimes people they aren't going to understand you. Sometimes family and friends are not going to understand you. And you know, I think that's what Yesu was talking about in the Gospels when he said that, he would turn children against their parents. I mean, of course, you know, he wasn't talking about being disrespectful. Um, he said to follow the Ten Commandments. And I'm not a Christian, but one of those commandments is to honor your parents. So, it seems like there's a conflict. No, what he's saying is that when people come into the truth, um, and sometimes their family members will reject that truth or reject them. So, and you just gotta accept that, embrace it, and move forward. Never let anybody try to take your African identity away from you. Um, I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's so-called white people. I don't care if it's so-called Black Americans. I don't care if it's a continental African. Don't let anybody take your identity from you once you realize who you are. So, if you are attempting to learn Kiswahili and you're running into challenges, then you just need to double down on the time and effort that you're putting into it. Never, ever, ever give up. Never, ever, ever give up. Um, once we are at a point where we can communicate with one another without using the European language, that will be a great step forward. And I want that to be my contribution. I want to become fluent in Kiswahili. I want to eventually become a Kiswahili teacher, and I think that would be me doing my part. I mean, a lot of times people have grand ambitions on of things that we need to do, economic ambitions and political ambitions. But in my opinion, everything starts from culture. You know, once we get our culture together and we unite around culture, then the stars are the limit, not the sky, but the stars are the limit. Um, we can do all types of things once we're established. If you look at all the other groups on Earth who are more successful than us, what they have is that shared culture. And I think a lot of us who have been oppressed, we mistake um, the way we are as our culture. It's like, okay, you got, the young people who may be under 30 who don't remember when, so-called black people owned businesses throughout America. They don't remember the two-parent households and the extended families and the warm community, and so they think this savagery or demon mode or whatever they want to call it, that's so-called black culture. So that means that the culture that I grew up on as a child in the 70s, that wasn't black culture. We need to know that um, a lot of things that people consider to be white, such as the pursuit of education or marriage and things of that nature, we were doing that more than other groups back in the 1950s. Um, so was it not African culture? Was it not black culture when they were doing it? And if it was then it is today. A lot of times, I know a lot of West Africans, they tend to think that they have a different culture than African Americans. But if you just go to the South and then you'll see a little bit of a difference. And then if you are old enough and you think about the South, um, of the '70s and '80s, pre hip hop South, not to down hip hop because I'm a hip hop head, but the whole world changed once the devil got control of our music. When you went down there, it was different. It used to take me 3 days before I could even understand what my relatives were saying. They would eat collard greens and cornbread with their fingers and things of that nature, and they were very hospitable, very family oriented, and we called that um, being country or just being southern, or some people even called it, remnants of slavery. But the truth was that was African culture, and we just didn't recognize it as being such. And over the years, we're losing more and more of that. So, what I would say is that, um, you know, we didn't lose all of the African culture. We just were brainwashed to the point where we're no longer able to recognize it. Um, so we need to embrace that. I've said before that we all need to relocate to the southeast of the United States, those of us who don't plan to repatriate. We need to live together, and we need to go back to your origin. If you don't go back to Africa, then you have to know that at some point in your experience here, your ancestors' experience here in the United States, that um, you came from the southeast before you were in California, before you were in Seattle, before you were in Minnesota, before you were in Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, New York. At least part of your relatives, because I know they did have slavery in the North, but and then I also know that there were free so-called black people in the North, but the large percentage of your ancestors came from them plantations in the Southeast. So going to the Southeast is going home, even if it's not going all the way home, which is the continent. So never, ever, ever give up on your African identity, no matter what, these various groups want to tell you, these different trolls that come on Pan-African uh, channels and try to disrupt us, even though we don't go to their channels and try to convince them of anything. Um, never give up on your language. Study hard. Anything worth having doesn't come easy. And there's a lot of things that we pursue that are less worthwhile than learning an African language, and we don't give up. So when it comes to something that's as important as reclaiming our languages, our names, and our cultures, we should never, ever, ever give up. Well, that's all I have for today. Asante Sana for watching. Kwaheri Kwasasa.